The scent hit me first, not the rich, familiar musk of pine and earth that marked my home territory, but something sharper, wintergreen and stone, with undertones of authority that made my skin prickle. Our convoy had crossed the border into Silvercrest territory an hour ago, but only now did the full reality of my situation crash over me like ice water. I sat rigid in the back seat of the SUV, my wrists bound with silver-lined rope that burned against my skin. The rope was ceremonial, more than functional, a reminder that I was property being transferred, not a person with choices. Through the tinted windows, jagged mountains rose against a bruised twilight sky, their peaks disappearing into low-hanging clouds. A storm was brewing, both outside and within me. "Almost there, little wolf," said Garrett, my former pack's beta, his voice carrying a false note of kindness that made my stomach turn. "Try to look presentable. These Silvercrest wolves aren't as forgiving as we've been." Forgiving. The word echoed hollowly in my chest. The Ridge Run pack had never forgiven me for being what I was. Weak, according to them. Different. A liability. The daughter of a once-respected family reduced to serving others after my parents' mysterious disappearance 3 years ago. They'd tolerated me because of my healing abilities, skills rare even among our kind. But tolerance had its limits when resources grew scarce. My fingers found the small pendant hidden beneath my threadbare sweater, a teardrop-shaped moonstone wrapped in silver wire that had been my mother's. "Remember, Eliza," she'd whispered the night before she vanished. "Still waters run deep. Your strength isn't in your claws or teeth, but here." She'd touched my heart, then my temple. It was the last thing she'd ever said to me. "I said fix yourself," Garrett snapped, jolting me from the memory. "Your hair's a mess." I lifted my bound hands awkwardly, tucking strands of pale blonde hair behind my ears. My hair had always been too light, almost white in certain light, another mark of my difference in a pack of predominantly dark-haired wolves. The vehicle slowed as we approached a massive iron gate embedded in stone. Guards with rifles, both modern weapons and ancient strength, stood at attention. Behind the gate, partially obscured by towering pines, rose a sprawling compound, part fortress, part modern estate, the notorious heart of Silvercrest territory. "Remember the terms," Garrett murmured as our driver lowered his window. "You belong to them now. Try to be useful enough that they keep you alive. Healing, cooking, cleaning, whatever they want. Don't mention Ridge Run. You're nothing to us anymore." The words weren't new, but they stung all the same. I'd been informed of my fate only yesterday, traded to settle a territorial debt, along with hunting rights to the eastern forest, and 2 crates of medical supplies. My value had been itemized alongside antibiotics and gauze. "Ridge Run, delivering as promised," our driver announced to the guards. 1 Omega female, untouched with healing abilities. I flinched at the clinical description, untouched, as if my lack of intimate experience was a selling point. Among our kind, it often was. The guard approached, his face impassive as he bent to look through the window. His eyes swept over me, calculating, evaluating, not as a person, but as goods delivered. "Pull forward to the main house. They're waiting." As the gate swung open with an ominous creak, a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air crept down my spine. I'd heard stories about Silvercrest, about their ruthless alpha king who had unified 3 warring packs through blood and will alone, Dominic Blackthorn. Even his name was spoken in whispers among my former pack. The SUV crawled up the winding driveway, gravel crunching beneath its tires. I caught glimpses of movement in the woods. Sentries, no doubt, monitoring our approach. The compound grew larger with each turn, stone and glass blending with the mountainside as if the fortress had grown organically from the earth itself. "Value yourself appropriately," Garrett continued, his voice lower now, almost urgent. "Not too high that they think you insolent, not so low that they think you worthless. Find a middle position and survive." It was the closest thing to kindness he'd shown me in years, this rough advice for survival. I wondered briefly if guilt had finally caught up with him, if trading a packmate, even one as insignificant as me, weighed on his conscience. The thought vanished as quickly as it had formed. Wolves like Garrett didn't waste energy on guilt. The vehicle stopped before a broad stone staircase leading to massive double doors. Guards flanked the entrance, their postures alert despite the ceremonial nature of this exchange. This wasn't a skirmish or a battle, just a business transaction. Yet tension hung thick in the air, making it difficult to breathe. "Out," Garrett ordered, not looking at me as he exited his side of the vehicle. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the door handle, the rope around my wrists making even simple tasks challenging. Before I could manage it, my door was wrenched open by one of the Silver Crest guards, a tall woman with a scar cutting across her cheekbone. "Move," she said, her voice neither kind nor cruel, simply efficient. I stepped out on unsteady legs, the mountain air sharp in my lungs. The sky had darkened further, and the first fat droplets of rain began to fall, pattering against the stone steps and my upturned face, appropriate weather for a funeral, I thought grimly. In many ways, Eliza Bennett of the Ridge Run Pack died today. Whoever I would be tomorrow remained to be seen. The entrance door swung open, spilling warm light onto the wet steps. A figure stood silhouetted against the brightness, tall and imposing. Not Dominic Blackthorne. This man was older, with silver streaking his dark hair and beard. "Julian," Garrett acknowledged, his posture straightening. "We've fulfilled our end." The man, Julian, descended the steps slowly, his eyes never leaving me. There was something in his gaze I couldn't quite decipher. Curiosity, perhaps, or suspicion. "So, I see," he replied, his voice deep and measured. "Remove her bindings. We don't treat gifts like prisoners here." Garrett hesitated, then gestured to one of our escorts. The rope fell away, leaving angry red marks around my wrists. I resisted the urge to rub them, keeping my arms at my sides, eyes downcast as I'd been instructed. Submission was survival. "Look at me," Julian commanded. I raised my eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. Something flickered across his features, surprise, quickly masked. "Your name?" he asked. "Eliza," I answered, my voice embarrassingly small. "Speak up, girl." I swallowed hard. "Eliza Bennett." Julian circled me slowly, assessing. I stood perfectly still, rain soaking through my thin sweater, plastering my hair to my face. I knew what he saw. A slender, pale woman barely into her 20s, unremarkable save for the too light hair and eyes that my mother had always called storm cloud gray. Nothing threatening, nothing valuable beyond my healing abilities. The terms stated she was an experienced healer, Julian said to Garrett, doubt evident in his tone. "She is," Garrett confirmed, trained by her mother, who was our pack's head healer before her departure. Julian's eyebrows rose slightly at that, but he didn't press. "And her shifting? Full transformation?" A flush of shame heated my cheeks despite the cold rain. This was the crux of my worthlessness to Ridge Run, my inability to fully transform. I could partially shift, accessing enhanced strength, speed, and senses, but the complete wolf form eluded me. Another failure, another difference that marked me as less. "Partial only," Garrett admitted, "but her healing compensates." Julian made a non-committal sound, then turned toward the doors. "We accept the delivery. The eastern hunting grounds are yours until the winter solstice, as agreed." He gestured toward me. "Come." Garrett didn't say goodbye, didn't offer any parting words or gestures. He simply turned and walked back to the vehicle, duty discharged. The finality of it knocked the breath from my lungs. It was done. I was no longer Ridge Run. I was property, a bargaining chip, a debt paid. "Inside, before you catch your death," Julian said, his tone softening fractionally, "the Alpha King will want to see what he's acquired." I followed him up the stairs, legs moving mechanically. The warmth of the interior hit me like a physical force after the chill outside. The entrance hall soared upward, all stone and wood and understated wealth. Pack members moved purposefully through connecting corridors, some pausing to stare at the newcomer, at me, with undisguised curiosity or suspicion. "Wait here," Julian instructed, gesturing to a bench near a massive fireplace. "Dry yourself. I'll inform the Alpha King of your arrival." Left alone, I sank onto the bench, exhaustion crashing over me in waves. The heat from the fire began to seep into my bones, reminding me of how cold I'd been for years, really, since losing my parents and my place in the pack hierarchy. Voices drifted from nearby rooms, discussions, laughter, the normal sounds of pack life. Silvercrest was larger than Ridge Run, their territory more expansive, their resources more plentiful. Perhaps here, I thought with a flicker of desperate hope, I might find some corner to exist in peace, some use for my skills that would justify my continued survival. The moonstone pendant felt heavy against my chest, a reminder of my mother's final words. Still waters run deep. I wondered what she would think of me now, traded away like livestock. Would she be ashamed of my submission? Or would she understand it as necessary survival? My thoughts scattered as footsteps approached. Multiple sets, moving with purpose. I rose quickly from the bench, smoothing my damp clothing as best I could. First impressions mattered now more than ever. Julian reappeared, his expression unreadable. Behind him walked two others, a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes, and a younger man whose easy grace couldn't quite mask the predator beneath. But it was the figure who entered last that stole the breath from my lungs. He moved like darkness itself, fluid and inevitable. Taller than the others, with shoulders that strained against his simple black Henley, he carried power the way others carried clothing, an intrinsic part of his presence. His hair was as black as midnight, cropped short on the sides but longer on top, and his features seemed carved from stone by an artist obsessed with creating the perfect balance between beauty and danger. Dominic Blackthorne, the Alpha King. His eyes locked on mine across the room, eyes of such a startling pale amber they appeared almost golden in the firelight. Something electric and unexpected passed between us, a jolt of recognition that made no sense. The pendant against my skin suddenly burned hot, and I gasped, breaking eye contact to press my hand against my chest in confusion. When I looked up again, the Alpha King's expression had transformed from mild curiosity to intense focus. He crossed the room in long strides, closing the distance between us until I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the scent that had teased my senses since crossing the border, wintergreen and stone, but also something wilder, something that called to a part of me I barely understood. "You," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to reverberate through my very bones. "Who are you, really?" Before I could answer, the woman behind him stepped forward. "Dominic, she's just the Omega from Ridge Run, the healer." But he didn't look away from me, didn't acknowledge her words. His gaze was unrelenting, searching my face, as if trying to decipher something written there in a language only he could read. "Your name," he demanded again. "Eliza Bennett," I whispered, unable to summon more volume with him standing so close, with that strange electricity still crackling in the air between us. His jaw tightened, and something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Bennett," he repeated, the name seeming to hold meaning beyond my understanding. He reached out suddenly, his movement so swift I had no time to react. His fingers brushed against the chain at my neck, finding the pendant that had inexplicably heated at his approach. The moment his skin touched the moonstone, a sound escaped him. Not quite human, not entirely wolf, a recognition, a claim. "Impossible," breathed Julian from behind him. The Alpha King's eyes blazed now, their amber depths capturing the firelight and transforming it into something molten. "Everyone out," he ordered, his gaze never leaving mine. "Now." The authority in his voice brooked no argument. Even the sharp-featured woman, who had appeared ready to object, retreated after a moment's hesitation. Within seconds, we were alone in the vast entrance hall, the crackle of flames the only sound beyond our breathing. "They told me you were a simple Omega," he said finally, his voice containing an edge of barely controlled rage that made me tremble. "A healer with no proper shifting ability, expendable enough to be traded for hunting rights." I swallowed hard. "That's what I am." His laugh held no humor. "No, little wolf, that's what they wanted you to believe." His fingers still held the moonstone pendant, his thumb brushing across its surface with disturbing intimacy. "This was your mother's." It wasn't a question. "Yes," I answered anyway, confusion mounting. How did you— Because I gave it to her. He cut me off, his words landing like physical blows. For safekeeping. For her daughter. When the time came, the room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What are you saying? His expression softened fractionally, something almost like wonder breaking through the anger. I'm saying, Eliza Bennett, that Ridge Run didn't just trade away an Omega healer today. His hand released the pendant, moving instead to cup my cheek with surprising gentleness. They unwittingly delivered my fated mate directly into my hands. The world contracted to a single point. His hand against my cheek, warm and electric. Fated mate. The words echoed in my mind like a foreign language I couldn't quite translate. Wolves whispered of such bonds. Soul-deep connections predetermined by forces beyond understanding, but they were rare. Almost mythical. Something that happened to important wolves. Alphas. Leaders. Not to me. I stepped backward, breaking the contact. There's been a mistake, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm nobody. Dominic's eyes narrowed, tracking my movement. Is that what they taught you to believe? He didn't advance, but his presence seemed to fill the space between us nonetheless. That you were nothing? The question struck too close to years of quiet degradation. Of being reminded daily that I was tolerated, not valued. I looked away, unable to hold his gaze. Your silence is answer enough, he said softly. Tell me about your parents. The abrupt change of subject caught me off guard. They disappeared 3 years ago. A hunting expedition that never returned. And before that? I frowned, unsure where this was leading. My mother was the pack healer. My father was— I hesitated, memories shifting uncomfortably. He advised our alpha. I was young when he started becoming distant, secretive. Dominic nodded as if confirming something to himself. Eleanor and James Bennett were not simply pack members. They were envoys, diplomats between Ridge Run and Silver Crest during the last peace negotiations. His jaw tightened, until Ridge Run's alpha decided peace was less profitable than conflict. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. What are you saying? I'm saying your parents didn't disappear. They were eliminated for advocating cooperation instead of war. He watched my face carefully. And you were deliberately kept ignorant of your heritage and potential. My mother's pendant felt suddenly heavy against my skin. Still waters run deep. Had this been what she meant? That beneath the surface I had carried something others feared? Why? I managed, though the question encompassed too much to articulate fully. Because a true mate bond to the Alpha King of Silver Crest would have made you untouchable. His voice dropped lower. Because your existence threatened everything they wanted to build. Thunder rumbled outside, echoing the turmoil inside me. It was too much. This stranger claiming to know more about my life, my parents, my very self, than I did. Too convenient that I was suddenly valuable after years of being treated as worthless. This is absurd, I said, wrapping my arms around myself. You don't even know me. A smile touched his lips, not warm, but not cruel either. The mate bond doesn't care about acquaintance, Eliza. It recognizes what belongs together at a level deeper than conscious thought. He gestured to the pendant. That stone reacts to my presence, because it was carved from the sacred pools in the heart of Silvercrest territory. It's attuned to the bloodline that rules here. As if on cue, the stone warmed against my skin again. Dominic continued, his tone gentler now. Your mother knew. That's why she gave you the pendant, protection and proof in one. She was preparing you, in her way. A memory surfaced, my mother teaching me to heal a wounded fox, her hands guiding mine over the animal's broken leg. Connection flows both ways, she'd said. To heal another is to recognize that their pain could be your pain, their strength, your strength. Had she been speaking of more than healing? The massive doors behind us opened, interrupting my spiraling thoughts. Julian entered, his expression grave. Forgive the intrusion, but Ridge Run's representatives are departing. They're asking for confirmation that the exchange is satisfactory. Dominic's face darkened. Satisfactory. He repeated, the word dripping with contempt. Tell them their debt is considered paid. For now, the ominous addition hung in the air as Julian nodded and retreated. Alone again, Dominic's attention returned to me. You need rest, food, dry clothes. His tone had shifted to something more practical, though the intensity in his eyes remained unchanged. We have much to discuss, but it can wait until morning. The abrupt shift to mundane concerns, my physical comfort, was almost more disorienting than his extraordinary claims. Part of me wanted to demand answers immediately, to understand what was happening to my life. Another part, the part that had learned survival through adaptation, recognized the wisdom in retreat. I needed space to process. "Thank you," I said simply. He nodded once, then reached for a small bell on a nearby table. Its clear tone summoned a young woman almost immediately, not a servant, I noted from her confident bearing, but someone who clearly expected to be called. "Maya," Dominic addressed her. "This is Eliza Bennett. She'll be staying in the East Wing. See that she has everything she needs." The woman, Maya, assessed me with curious eyes that held no hostility, only interest. "Of course," she said, then turned to me with a small smile. "If you'll follow me." Before I could move, Dominic spoke again. "Eliza." My name and his voice sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. "Nothing is as it seems. Trust no one's version of you but your own." With those cryptic words, he turned and strode from the room, leaving me more confused than ever. Maya led me through a labyrinth of corridors, the opulence of the main hall giving way to more lived-in spaces. Pack members nodded respectfully to her as we passed, their eyes lingering curiously on me. News traveled fast in wolf packs. No doubt everyone already knew of the Omega traded from Ridge Run. "Here we are," Maya announced, stopping before a heavy wooden door. "This will be your room." She pushed the door open to reveal a space larger than any I'd ever had to myself. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, windows along another offering a view of the mountains now shrouded in stormy darkness. A fire already burned in a small hearth, casting dancing shadows across comfortable furnishings. "The bathroom is through there," Maya indicated a door to the right. "I've put some clothes in the wardrobe that should fit you. They're mine, but we seem close in size." I turned to her, bewildered by this kindness from a stranger. "Thank you, but why am I in the East Wing? Isn't this where—" I trailed off, unsure how to phrase my confusion. Maya's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Where the pack leadership stays, yes. Did you expect to be housed in servants' quarters?" The truth must have shown on my face, because her expression softened. "Whatever you were in Ridge Run, you're under the Alpha King's protection now." She moved to the wardrobe, pulling out a soft-looking sweater and leggings. "I'll have food brought up. You should shower and change." "Maya," I said before she could leave, "what do you know about fated mates?" Her eyebrows rose, but she didn't seem shocked by the question. "Only what everyone knows. They're rare, powerful. A true mate bond can't be broken or denied, only delayed." She studied me curiously. "Why do you ask?" I touched the pendant absently, just something I heard mentioned. She nodded, though her eyes suggested she suspected more to the story. "Rest, Eliza. Tomorrow will come soon enough." Left alone, I moved as if in a dream, the events of the day catching up with me as exhaustion seeped into my bones. The bathroom was luxurious by my standards, with a shower large enough for 3 people and products that smelled of herbs and clean mountain air. I stood under the hot water until my skin flushed pink, washing away the journey, the rope burns on my wrists, the lingering scent of my former pack. Clean and dressed in borrowed clothes, I returned to find a tray of food waiting, simple fare, but more than I would have expected. Bread still warm from the oven, a hearty stew rich with meat and vegetables, even a small pot of honey for sweetening the tea that steamed beside it. I ate mechanically at first, then with increasing appreciation as flavors exploded on my tongue. As I ate, I tried to make sense of everything that had happened. My parents, envoys, not simply pack members, their disappearance, deliberate elimination, if Dominic was to be believed, and the most outlandish claim of all, that I, Eliza Bennett, unremarkable Omega, who couldn't even fully shift, was the fated mate of the most powerful alpha in the region. It seemed impossible. A convenient fiction, perhaps, to justify keeping a potentially useful healer. And yet, the way the pendant had heated at his approach, the electric recognition that had passed between us, the fact that he'd known my mother had given me this specific necklace. I moved to the window, watching lightning illuminate the jagged mountain peaks. This place felt strangely familiar, though I'd never been here before. Something about the scent of the air, the rhythm of the rain against the glass, spoke to a part of me I hadn't known existed. "Trust no one's version of you but your own," Dominic had said. But what was my version? Who was I, if not the person I'd been raised to believe I was? The questions chased each other through my mind as exhaustion finally claimed me. I curled on the bed that was too soft, too large, too unfamiliar, and surrendered to sleep. I dreamed of running through moonlit forests, faster and freer than I'd ever been in waking life. In the dream, my transformation was effortless, limbs lengthening, senses sharpening, form shifting until I ran on 4 legs instead of 2. Beside me ran a shadow, larger and darker than my pale form, keeping pace with easy power. We were hunting something together, or perhaps we were being hunted. The distinction blurred as we moved in perfect synchronization through the trees. I woke with a gasp as the first light of dawn crept through the windows. For a disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was, the room too grand, the bed too comfortable. Then yesterday's events crashed over me, and I sat up, pushing tangled pale hair from my face. A soft knock at the door made me tense. "Eliza?" Maya's voice called. "Are you awake? The Alpha King has requested your presence at breakfast." Not a request, I understood instinctively, a summons. I dressed quickly in clothes Maya had provided, a simple blue sweater and dark jeans that fit better than anything I'd worn in years. My old clothes lay in a discarded heap, and I considered leaving them behind. But some instinct made me retrieve my mother's pendant, fastening it around my neck where it settled like a familiar weight. Maya waited in the corridor, her expression brightening when she saw me. "You look better," she observed. "Sleep helps." I managed a small smile, though my stomach twisted with nerves. "Where are we going?" "Private dining room," she answered, leading me through hallways already busy with morning activity. Pack members nodded respectfully to Maya as we passed. Some openly stared at me, while others pretended not to notice the newcomer in their midst. I kept my eyes lowered, old habits of submission hard to break. "Stop that," Maya said suddenly, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not in Ridge Run anymore. Silvercrest doesn't expect Omegas to behave like they're invisible." I looked up, startled. What does Silvercrest expect? Something like approval flickered in her eyes. That everyone contributes according to their abilities. That pack means family, not hierarchy of worth. She paused outside an ornately carved door. Dominic rebuilt this pack from the ashes of 3 warring territories. He doesn't tolerate the old ways of treating Omegas as lesser. Before I could process this, she knocked on the door, then pushed it open without waiting for a response. The room beyond was smaller than I'd expected, intimate rather than grand. Windows overlooked a mist-shrouded garden, and a fire crackled in a stone hearth. A round table dominated the space, set with plates and steaming dishes that made my mouth water despite my anxiety. Dominic sat with his back to the door, but he rose as we entered, turning with that fluid grace that seemed incongruous in someone of his size. In daylight, he appeared no less imposing, but I could see details I'd missed in the firelit hall, the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, a small scar that bisected one eyebrow, the way his Henley stretched across shoulders built for bearing burdens. "Eliza," he said, my name sounding different in his voice. Significant. "You slept well?" "Yes," I answered, surprising myself with the truth of it. Despite everything, I had slept more deeply than in months. "Thank you for the room. It's more than I expected." Something darkened in his expression. "Your expectations need adjustment." He gestured to the table. "Join me." "Maya, thank you." Maya squeezed my arm reassuringly before leaving, closing the door behind her. Alone with him, the room felt suddenly smaller. I moved to the table, taking the seat opposite his. He remained standing until I was settled, a courtesy I hadn't anticipated. "Tea?" he asked, lifting a pot. At my nod, he poured, the domestic gesture at odds with the power that radiated from him. "Eat," he added, gesturing to the spread between us. "We have much to discuss." I served myself small portions of eggs and fruit, conscious of his gaze. He ate with efficient movements, nothing wasted, his attention never fully leaving me. The silence stretched until I could bear it no longer. You said my parents were killed, I said abruptly. Not lost. How do you know this? If my directness surprised him, he didn't show it. Because I was there the night they disappeared. He set down his fork. Not at Ridge Run, but at the border meeting point where we'd arranged to speak. They never arrived. 3 days later, I found evidence of what happened. My heart hammered against my ribs. What evidence? His eyes held mine, assessing how much I could handle. Your father's ring. Blood. Signs of a struggle that had been hastily concealed. He paused. I would have come for you then, but you'd already been hidden, moved from your family's dwelling to the common quarters, officially listed as an unrelated Omega, not the daughter of Bennett Envoys. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. All those years believing I'd been taken in out of pack duty, when in fact I'd been deliberately separated from my identity. Why? I asked, the single word encompassing a universe of questions. Politics. Power. Dominic's voice hardened. Ridge Run's alpha, Gregory, was losing control. The territory was struggling. Your parents had proposed an alliance between our packs, including resource sharing, joint hunting grounds, even exchange programs for youngsters to train in each territory's specialties. I frowned, struggling to reconcile this with what I'd been told. But Ridge Run always said Silvercrest was aggressive, expansionist. A bitter smile touched his lips. Easier to paint us as enemies than admit their own failures of leadership. He leaned forward. Gregory feared an alliance would eventually reveal his weaknesses. He preferred isolation and control over cooperation that might threaten his position. And my parents threatened that isolation. Yes, but they threatened more than that. His eyes dropped to the pendant at my throat. Your mother sensed the potential bond between us years ago, when you were still a child. She came to me in secret, asking that I wait until you were grown before approaching Ridge Run formally. The implications washed over me in a dizzying wave. You knew about me? All this time? I knew you existed, that you might be my fated mate. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a surprisingly human gesture of frustration. But after your parents vanished, you disappeared from official pack records. Eleanor had given you her pendant, my one way of finding you. But you never crossed our borders where I might sense it. The food sat forgotten between us, as pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known existed began fitting together. Until yesterday, when they practically delivered me to your doorstep. An irony that would be amusing if the circumstances weren't so infuriating. His knuckles whitened around his cup. They thought they were trading away a useless Omega. Instead, they handed over the one person who could solidify an unbreakable alliance between our territories. The magnitude of it all, what I apparently was, what it meant, felt too enormous to comprehend. I pushed back from the table, needing space to breathe. It's too much. Dominic didn't try to stop me as I moved to the windows, pressing my palm against the cool glass. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean, the garden below glistening with raindrops that caught the morning light. I understand, he said quietly. You've had your entire identity kept from you, only to have a stranger tell you that you're something else entirely. I turned back to face him. I don't even know what a fated mate means. Not really. His expression softened slightly. It means different things to different pairs. At its core, it's a recognition at the deepest level. Soul to soul, wolf to wolf, a natural alignment that can't be manufactured or destroyed. He paused. It doesn't remove choice, Eliza. It simply illuminates possibilities. Possibilities, I echoed, the word tasting strange. After years of having no choices at all, the concept of possibilities felt almost threatening in its openness. He seemed to read my thoughts. You need time, space to rediscover who you are without Ridge Run's influence. I won't rush you. The unexpected consideration caught me off guard. I'd prepared myself for demands, for being claimed as property once again, just by a different owner. This offer of patience didn't fit my understanding of alphas, especially one as powerful as Dominic Blackthorne. Thank you, I said, meaning it. He nodded, then changed the subject with deliberate lightness. Maya tells me you have healing abilities. We could use your skills in our infirmary if you're willing. Our current healer is skilled with trauma, but less so with illness. The return to practical matters was almost a relief. I'd like that. Healing it's the one thing I've always been sure of. Something like approval warmed his amber eyes. Then we'll start there, building a place for you that isn't defined by what others decided you should be. A knock interrupted us, and Julian entered without waiting for permission. A familiarity that spoke of long association. "Forgive the intrusion," he said, though his expression suggested the matter was urgent. "We've received word from the northern outpost. There's been an attack." Dominic was on his feet instantly, all traces of the patient, almost gentle man vanishing beneath the mantle of leadership. Casualties? 2 injured, none dead. But the attackers left a message. Julian's eyes flicked to me, then back to Dominic. They're claiming Ridge Run territory was violated during last night's patrol. The implication hung heavy in the air. My former pack, creating pretense for conflict mere hours after completing our transaction. "They're testing boundaries," Dominic said, his voice deceptively calm. "Seeing how we'll respond now that we have what they believe is merely a tradable omega," he turned to me. "It seems your former alpha suspects he may have miscalculated, though he can't possibly know how severely. Or," Julian countered, "they're creating justification to demand her return." My blood ran cold at the thought of being sent back to Ridge Run, back to Garrett's calculating eyes, and Gregory's quiet disdain. Back to being nothing. "That won't happen," Dominic stated, the simple declaration carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Eliza isn't a bargaining chip to be passed back and forth." He turned to Julian. "Prepare a formal response, diplomatic but firm. We acknowledge no territorial violation but offer a neutral meeting to discuss border clarifications." Julian nodded and departed, leaving us in a silence heavy with implications. "They'll come for me," I said, voicing the fear taking shape in my chest. "Let them try." The words were spoken softly, but with such menace that a shiver traced my spine. Dominic moved closer, not touching me, but near enough that his scent, wintergreen and stone and something wilder, enveloped my senses. "You are under my protection now, Eliza Bennett. No one will take you anywhere against your will again. Not even me." The promise startled me with its intensity and its caveat. Not even me. An acknowledgement of my autonomy I hadn't expected from an Alpha King. "I should see the injured," I said, finding refuge in the practical. "If I'm to be your healer, let me begin now." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "I'll have Maya show you to the infirmary." He hesitated, then added, "Be cautious. Not everyone will welcome the news of what you truly are. There are those in Silvercrest who have their own ambitions, their own ideas about who should stand beside the Alpha King." The warning added another layer to the complex situation I'd found myself in. Not just a pawn between packs, but potentially a target within my new refuge. "I've spent years being invisible," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "I know how to navigate dangerous waters." The Silvercrest Infirmary bore little resemblance to the cramped, ill-supplied healing room I'd worked in at Ridge Run. Housed in a modern wing of the main compound, it featured proper hospital beds, advanced medical equipment alongside traditional herbal remedies, and windows that flooded the space with natural light. Maya had introduced me to Dr. Lowell, the pack's primary physician, a human who knew what we were but kept our secrets. His gruff exterior couldn't quite mask his obvious relief at having a healer with my specific abilities join his team. "These two came in before dawn," he explained, leading me to a curtained area where the injured wolves rested, patrol guards who encountered what they're calling a hunting party on our northern border. I approached the first bed where a young man lay with his eyes closed, breath shallow, a bandage wrapped around his torso stained with seeping blood. The second bed held an older woman, her face ashen, leg elevated and splinted. "Bullet wound," Dr. Lowell said, nodding to the man. "Clean through, missed vital organs, but he's lost blood. The female has a compound fracture. Silver-tipped arrow shattered the bone before they pulled it out. Silver poisoning is slowing the natural healing." I nodded, recognizing the symptoms. Silver was one of the few substances that could truly harm our kind, interfering with our accelerated healing and causing a toxic reaction similar to blood poisoning in humans. "I'll need water, clean cloths, And my herbs if they've been brought from the vehicle, I said, slipping automatically into the calm focus that accompanied healing work. Already here, Maya replied, indicating a small bag on a nearby table. Dominic had them delivered to your room last night. Another unexpected consideration. I pushed the thought aside, concentrating on the tasks at hand. I began with the woman, whose condition seemed more critical. Sitting beside her bed, I placed my palms gently on either side of her damaged leg, closing my eyes to focus. Healing wasn't magic, not exactly. It was more like communication, a dialogue between my energy and the injured body. My name is Eliza, I said softly. I'm going to help with the silver poisoning first, then work on the bone. The woman's eyes fluttered open, pain evident in their depths. New healer, she managed. From Ridge Run. Yes. I didn't elaborate further, already sinking into the meditative state necessary for my work. I envisioned the silver particles in her system, tiny, toxic invaders disrupting her natural healing. With practiced concentration, I directed my energy to isolate them, drawing them toward the surface of her skin, where they could be expelled. Minutes passed in deep concentration. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I worked. The familiar drain of energy a small price for the results. Slowly, silvery beads appeared on the skin around her wound, the metal being pulled out through her pores. Dr. Lowell watched with undisguised fascination, dabbing away the expelled silver with cloth soaked in a cleansing solution. Remarkable, he murmured. I've read about this ability, but never witnessed it. Once the silver was removed, the bone mending would be easier. Still, it required precision and strength I wasn't sure I possessed after yesterday's journey and emotional upheaval. I pushed forward anyway, visualizing the shattered bone knitting together, encouraging her body's natural healing to accelerate. By the time I finished with both patients, nearly 3 hours had passed. I sat back, exhaustion washing over me in waves. Maya appeared at my side with water and a protein bar, her expression concerned. You're pale as a ghost, she said. You should have taken breaks. I accepted the water gratefully. They needed immediate attention. The silver poisoning would have spread. Nevertheless, came a deep voice from behind us. You need to recognize your own limits. I turned to find Dominic standing in the doorway, his powerful frame somehow not diminishing the sterile medical space, but rather filling it with a different kind of energy. How long had he been watching? The patients? He asked, moving closer. They'll recover, I answered, attempting to stand and finding my legs embarrassingly unsteady. The silver's been removed and the wounds are healing normally now. They should rest today, but by tomorrow they'll be much improved. Dominic nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. But his eyes remained fixed on me, noting the tremor in my hands, the exhaustion I couldn't quite hide. You've done enough for now, he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. Maya, see that Eliza returns to her room to rest. He turned to Dr. Lowell. Full report on my desk within the hour. The doctor nodded respectfully. Of course, Alpha. I wanted to protest being dismissed, to insist I could continue working, but the room chose that moment to tilt alarmingly. Strong hands caught my elbows, steadying me. I looked up to find Dominic much closer than before, concern etched in his features. You pushed too hard, he said quietly. I needed to prove my worth, I admitted before I could stop myself. Something like pain flickered across his face. Not at the cost of your health. His hands lingered a moment longer than necessary before he stepped back. Rest. That's an order. Despite the commanding tone, I sensed genuine concern beneath. It was disorienting. In Ridge Run, my healing abilities had been a resource to be exploited, not a gift to be protected. Maya helped me back to my room, where I collapsed onto the bed fully clothed. Sleep claimed me instantly, dragging me into dreams filled with silver mist and golden eyes. I woke to late afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows and the disorienting sensation of being watched. Sitting up quickly, I found a young girl perched in a chair near the bed, observing me with unabashed curiosity. She couldn't have been more than 12, with a riot of dark curls and solemn eyes that seemed too old for her face. "Hello," I said cautiously. "You sleep with your mouth open," she informed me matter-of-factly. "And you talk sometimes." I pushed hair from my face, trying to gather my scattered thoughts. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" "Lily," she answered, "Dominic's sister." That got my full attention. None of the whispered stories about the Alpha King had mentioned a sister, especially not one so young. The age gap between them must be significant. "I see," I said, though I didn't. "And you're in my room because Dom asked me to bring you food." She nodded toward a covered tray on the bedside table. "But you were sleeping so hard I decided to wait." She tilted her head, studying me with disconcerting intensity. "You're different than I expected." "Different how?" "Softer, but not weak." She said it like she was solving a puzzle. "The others think you're just an Omega from Ridge Run, but you're not, are you?" My conversation with Dominic hadn't seemed private enough to be common knowledge yet. "What makes you say that?" Lily shrugged. "Dom doesn't assign personal quarters in the East Wing to random Omegas. And he doesn't check on patients in the infirmary unless they're pack leaders or family." Her gaze dropped to my pendant. "Plus you're wearing our symbol." I touched the moonstone reflexively. "Your symbol?" "The stone from the sacred pools." She said it like it should be obvious. "Only pack leaders and their mates wear moonstone from our territory. It's tradition." The casual confirmation of what Dominic had claimed sent a tremor through me. This child had just verified a key piece of his story without prompting. "You should eat," Lily continued, apparently satisfied with whatever she'd been trying to determine. "Dom gets grumpy when people ignore his instructions, and he specifically said you needed protein after healing." I couldn't help but smile at her characterization of the intimidating Alpha King as merely grumpy. I reached for the tray, suddenly aware of my hunger. Beneath the cover was a hearty meal: roast chicken, vegetables, fresh bread, and what smelled like apple tart for dessert. "Did you heal Kira and Ben?" Lily asked as I ate. "The patrol guards who got hurt?" I nodded. "They should be recovering well now. Everyone's talking about it," she said. "Dr. Lowell told Dom you pulled silver straight through the skin. He said it was the most advanced healing he'd seen in 30 years of working with our kind." I shifted uncomfortably at the praise. "It's just something I was taught by my mother." "Your mother was a Bennett," Lily stated. "They were diplomats." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "How do you know that?" "I listen when adults think I'm not paying attention." She grinned, revealing a missing tooth that reminded me of her youth despite her precocious manner. "Also, I was there when Dom found their personal effects after they disappeared. He was really angry, scary angry." A chill ran through me. "You saw what happened to my parents?" Her expression sobered. "Not exactly. I saw what came after. Dom came back with their things. Your mom's journal, your dad's ceremonial dagger. There was blood." She hesitated. "He tried to go back for you, but Ridge Run closed their borders. Said there was an outbreak of some human illness and no one could enter or leave." Another piece of the puzzle, another confirmation of Dominic's version of events. The knot of anger that had been forming in my chest since yesterday tightened further. My entire life had been built on deliberate lies. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked softly. Lily considered the question with surprising seriousness. "Because Dom needs someone who makes him less alone." She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. "He thinks being Alpha King means he has to carry everything by himself. But even kings need someone to talk to when the crown gets heavy." The insight was startling from someone so young. Before I could respond, a knock at the door preceded Maya's entrance. She raised an eyebrow at Lily. "Causing trouble again, little shadow?" Lily grinned unrepentantly. "Just making friends." She hopped up from her chair. "Bye, Eliza. I'll see you at dinner." After she bounded out, Maya shook her head fondly. "Lily has a habit of adopting newcomers. I hope she didn't overwhelm you." "No," I said truthfully. She was illuminating. "Well, if you're feeling recovered enough, Dominic has requested your presence in his study. There's been a development regarding Ridge Run." Anxiety flared in my chest. "What kind of development?" "They formally requested your return," Maya said, her expression grave. "Claiming you were incorrectly classified in the trade agreement and therefore not legitimately transferred." The room seemed to drop in temperature. And what did Dominic say? A slow smile spread across Maya's face. He said they're welcome to present their case at tomorrow's full moon gathering, where he'll be announcing his mate bond to the entire pack. My heart lurched. He's what? Maya looked suddenly uncertain. He didn't tell you? The announcement is set for tomorrow night's ceremony. All neighboring packs have been invited, including Ridge Run. She hesitated. I assumed you knew. I set down my fork, appetite vanishing. Making a public declaration would change everything, transforming me overnight from traded Omega to potential Luna of the most powerful pack in the region. The political implications alone were staggering. I need to speak with him, I said, rising from the bed with more steadiness than I'd had earlier. That's why he sent for you, Maya replied. Come on. His study is this way. We walked in silence through corridors that still felt unfamiliar, passing pack members who regarded me with increasing curiosity. News was spreading, it seemed. By tomorrow, everyone would know exactly who and what I was supposed to be. The question pounding in my head with each step was simpler. Was I ready to become the person Dominic claimed I was born to be? Or was I still the shadow-dwelling Omega that Ridge Run had shaped me into? Dominic's study occupied a corner of the main building, with windows overlooking both the central courtyard and the mountains beyond. The space reflected its occupant, powerful but not ostentatious, with shelves of books, maps spread across a large desk, and a seating area near a fireplace. He stood with his back to the door when we entered, silhouetted against the late afternoon light. Leave us, Maya, he said without turning. She squeezed my hand briefly before departing, the door closing with a soft click that felt oddly final. You're going to announce our supposed bond, I said immediately, not waiting for him to speak first. Without consulting me. Now he turned, his expression carefully neutral. Not supposed, Eliza. Real. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Please. I remained standing. You promised me time. Circumstances have changed. His voice remained calm, but tension radiated from his posture. Ridge Run is maneuvering. If we don't establish your position clearly, they'll continue seeking ways to reclaim you. So I'm still just a piece on a territorial chessboard. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. He moved toward me then, closing the distance with deliberate steps until he stood close enough that I had to tilt my head to maintain eye contact. No. You are the woman who could end generations of conflict between our packs. The one person whose existence proves cooperation is possible. Or, I countered, I'm the perfect excuse for more bloodshed when Ridge Run decides I've been stolen rather than traded. A muscle worked in Dominic's jaw as he considered my words. You're right, he admitted finally. This could go either way. Peace or war will depend on how we handle the next few days. His acknowledgement took me by surprise. I'd expected insistence, perhaps even the alpha command that could bend lesser wolves to his will. Instead, he'd conceded my point. So why rush the announcement? I asked, softening my tone. Why not wait until we understand what we are to each other? Dominic moved to the window, gazing out at the mountains bathed in the golden light of approaching sunset. Because waiting gives Gregory time to build his case, to spread rumors that I've taken you against pack law. His shoulders tensed. And because the bond between us grows stronger each day. You feel it too, whether you acknowledge it or not. I couldn't deny it. Even now, standing across the room from him, I was achingly aware of his presence, like gravity, pulling me into his orbit. Since crossing into Silver Crest territory, something inside me had awakened, a recognition that went beyond rational thought. I barely know you, I said, the protest sounding weak even to my ears. He turned, his amber eyes catching the fading light. Then know this. I have spent 3 years searching for you, Eliza Bennett. Not because of politics or power, but because from the moment your mother described you, I knew you were the missing piece of my soul. His voice deepened. I felt you before I saw you, sensed you before you crossed my threshold. And every moment since has only confirmed what I already knew. The raw honesty in his words stole my breath. This wasn't the calculated speech of a political leader, but something more primal, more personal. And if I'm not ready, I whispered. Then we announced the potential bond only. The recognition, not the completion. He approached me slowly, as one might a wounded animal. But we must establish your position here. Your protection depends on it. I sank into the chair he'd offered earlier, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. What would it mean? This announcement? Dominic took the seat opposite mine, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. The position should have diminished his imposing presence. Instead, it created an intimacy that was equally disarming. It would mean acknowledging publicly that we recognize each other as fated mates, he explained. It would establish your position as my equal, not as property transferred in a territorial agreement. His expression darkened. It would also make you a target for those who oppose me, both within and outside our borders. Like Ridge Run. Yes. And others who would prefer Silvercrest remained isolated, who resist the union of packs that our bond could eventually create. I thought of Lily's words earlier, about Dominic carrying burdens alone, about the weight of the crown. I was beginning to understand that the Alpha King's power came with profound responsibilities and dangers I'd never considered. And if I refuse? I asked, needing to understand all options. His gaze remained steady. Then I'll continue to protect you as a valued member of Silvercrest, but without the full authority that mate status would provide. It would be more difficult. But I meant what I said, Eliza. I won't force this bond, even if refusing it leaves us both unfulfilled. The gravity of the choice before me was overwhelming. In less than 2 days, I'd gone from disposable Omega to potential Luna, from healer to political symbol. It was too much, too fast. And yet, some part of me responded to the call of destiny Dominic described. I need air, I said abruptly, standing. I need to think. To my surprise, he nodded. The garden below is private. You'll find a path that leads to a small clearing with a pool. It's peaceful there. I recognized the offer for what it was. Trust, when he could have insisted I remain where he could protect me. Thank you. As I reached the door, his voice stopped me. Eliza. I turned to find him standing again, power and vulnerability somehow coexisting in his stance. Whatever you decide, know that you have a place here, not because of what you might be to me, but because of who you are. The words followed me like a warm current as I made my way through the compound and into the garden he'd described. True to his word, a narrow path wound between flowering shrubs and ancient trees, eventually opening to a small clearing where a natural pool reflected the evening sky. The water glowed with an inner luminescence that seemed almost magical in the gathering dusk. I knelt at the edge, trailing my fingers through the cool water. The same distinctive blue shimmer of my pendant emanated from beneath the surface, moonstone in its natural state. This, then, was one of the sacred pools Lily had mentioned. Beautiful, isn't it? I startled, turning to find the sharp-featured woman I'd glimpsed yesterday standing at the edge of the clearing. Unlike Maya's friendly openness or Lily's curious enthusiasm, this woman's expression held calculation as she studied me. Yes, I answered, rising to my feet. I'm sorry, I didn't realize anyone else was here. Clearly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm Vivian, Silvercrest's beta, and you're Eliza Bennett, the healer from Ridge Run. The slight pause suggested she knew exactly who I really was. That's right. She moved closer, her movements graceful, but with none of Dominic's natural power. This was practiced elegance, deliberately intimidating. You've caused quite a stir in just 1 day. Healing silver poisoning, capturing our alpha's attention, receiving quarters in the East Wing. Her gaze dropped to my pendant. And wearing sacred stone around your neck like you have the right. The hostility beneath her words was unmistakable. Here, then, was one of those Dominic had warned about, someone with their own ambitions regarding who should stand beside the Alpha King. I straightened my spine, refusing to be cowed. The pendant was my mother's. Yes, Eleanor Bennett. I remember her. Vivian circled me slowly, idealistic, naive, believing packs could overcome centuries of territorial instinct through diplomatic talks. Her laugh was soft but cutting. Look where that got her. Anger flared hot in my chest. You knew my mother? I knew of her, just as I know of you. She stopped directly before me. the supposed fated mate, appearing at exactly the moment Dominic needs a political advantage against Ridge Run. Convenient, isn't it? The insinuation was clear, that Dominic was using me, manufacturing a mate bond claim for strategic purposes. It struck at my deepest insecurity, that all of this was somehow an elaborate manipulation. I don't know what you're implying, I said carefully, but I have no interest in politics. I'm just trying to find my place here. Your place, Vivian repeated, venom dripping from the words. Let's be clear, little Omega. Your place is wherever the Alpha decides to put you. For now, that might be at his side, playing the role of long-lost mate. But roles change when they're no longer useful. She reached out suddenly, fingertips brushing my pendant. I flinched as the stone flared hot against my skin, reacting not with the warming recognition it showed to Dominic, but with what felt like a warning. Vivian withdrew her hand as if burned, momentary surprise crossing her features before her mask of cool disdain returned. Interesting, she murmured. Perhaps there's more to you than appears. But ask yourself this, even if the mate bond is real, are you prepared for what it means? To stand beside a king, to face those who would destroy everything he's built? Before I could answer, a low growl rumbled from the path behind us. We both turned to find Lily there, her small form practically vibrating with protective fury. Leave her alone, Vivian, the girl demanded, her voice carrying surprising authority for someone so young. Vivian's expression shifted to practiced affection. Little Shadow, I was just introducing myself to our new guest. Liar, Lily spat. I heard you. Dom said you're not supposed to be alone with her. Something dangerous flashed in Vivian's eyes before she controlled it. Your brother worries too much. I was simply providing our new healer with some historical context. She turned back to me with a brittle smile. We'll continue our conversation another time, Eliza. She departed with measured steps, disappearing down the path toward the main compound. As soon as she was gone, Lily rushed to my side. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? The girl's eyes were wide with concern. I'm fine, I assured her, though my heart still raced from the confrontation. She just wanted to talk, Lily scowled. Vivian doesn't just talk to anyone. She's been trying to become Luna forever. When Dom didn't choose her, she started saying she was waiting for his true mate to appear. Her expression darkened. She didn't expect it to actually happen. The pieces clicked into place. She thought she'd eventually wear him down. Exactly. But now you're here, and the pendant reacts to Dom, and Vivian's whole plan is ruined. Lily grabbed my hand. Come on, we should tell Dom what happened. I hesitated, still processing the encounter. Lily, do you believe I'm really your brother's mate? She looked at me with those two old eyes. The pendant doesn't lie, and Dom hasn't smiled like he does around you since before our parents died. She tugged my hand again. Please, he needs to know Vivian threatened you. She didn't exactly threaten me, I protested, though the warning had been clear enough. She will, Lily said with complete certainty. Vivian doesn't give up what she wants, and she's wanted to be Luna for a very long time. I allowed her to lead me back toward the compound, my mind racing. Vivian's hostility had clarified something for me. The dangers Dominic had mentioned weren't abstract. There were those who would actively work against any bond between us, who would prefer I disappear as my parents had. The realization hardened something inside me. Ridge Run had spent years teaching me to be invisible, to accept whatever scraps of existence they deigned to offer. I'd survived by making myself small, unthreatening, useful, but forgettable. But that Eliza, the shadow-dwelling head-down Omega, couldn't survive in this new world of power plays and political maneuvering. And perhaps she shouldn't. My mother's words echoed in my memory. Still waters run deep. Maybe it was time to discover just how deep my waters truly ran. Dominic was waiting in the entrance hall when we returned, his posture alert as if sensing our urgency. His eyes moved quickly over me, searching for signs of harm. Vivian cornered her at the sacred pool, Lily announced before I could speak. She was being threatening. Dominic's expression darkened, but he kept his voice gentle as he addressed his sister. Thank you for bringing Eliza back safely. Would you give us a moment? Lily hesitated, clearly reluctant to miss what promised to be an important conversation. Fine. "But I'll be right over there," she said, pointing to a window seat across the hall. Once she'd moved away, Dominic turned to me. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I answered honestly. Vivian was testing boundaries, seeing what I'm made of. And what did she discover? I met his gaze directly, that I'm not as easy to intimidate as she hoped. I touched the pendant at my throat. It reacted to her touch, not like it does with you. It felt like a warning. Surprise flickered across his face. The stone responded defensively? Yes, it burned her, I think. Dominic's expression shifted to something I couldn't quite interpret. Perhaps satisfaction, perhaps pride. The sacred stone recognizes threats as well as bonds. His jaw tightened. "I'll speak with Vivian." "No," I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. "Let her believe she's planted seeds of doubt. Let her think I'm uncertain." I took a deep breath. "Because tomorrow night, I'm going to stand beside you for the announcement." His eyes widened slightly. "You're certain?" "Not about everything," I admitted. "I still need time to understand what this bond truly means for us, but I am certain about one thing. I won't be used as a pawn again. Not by Ridge Run. Not by Vivian. Not by anyone." I straightened my shoulders. "If I'm truly meant to be Luna of Silver Crest, then let's begin as we mean to continue. Together, facing whatever comes."